Alright guys, how's it all going? Hope you're all well. Today I'd just like to do a VR to my top man, Segasaturnlad, for his top 10 questions. Everyone's been doing them, so I thought I'd jump on the bandwagon and answer his. There's some pretty good questions actually, so I'll just not hang around too long, jump straight in it. Question 1, your favourite controller stick, favourite analog stick. I had to think about this one. I must admit, I do like the original Xbox controller, but the S-type one. I feel that's got a nice little indentation for your thumb to sit on. The stick itself does have a little bit of a dead spot, but overall it's pretty good. The GameCube one is phenomenal. It's a fantastic analog stick, but what I think lets that controller down is the C-stick is horrendous. I don't understand how they can make one of them so fantastic and the other one just utter pants. I think it obviously because when the GameCube kind of came into this twin stick sort of controller stage, they weren't really looking for it to be the future. I think when you look at the C buttons on the N64, it was simply just to adjust the camera. But yeah, so I'll go for the S-type controller for the Xbox. Question number two, most irritating YouTuber. It has to be over 10,000 subs. Well, I don't tend to watch many channels on YouTube that's not gaming related, so I'll pick somebody on the gaming community, not the gaming community, but the gaming setup. And for me, I've only watched him a few times, but it's the video game resellers. I think his channel's JHDMF or something like that. I don't know what it is about him. I mean, obviously I might piss off a few Americans here, but the typical American is sort of whoopering and howling, "Whoa, yeah, yeah, boy, yeah!" I just feel like that channel is full of stuff like that. They get a bit carried away, a bit excited. Not quite as reserved as us British people. But I don't really like that channel, so I just don't really watch it. And another channel I'm starting to dislike is The Last Gamer. I used to like his channel. I've actually drove past his house actually when I was in Australia in Melbourne, and been to the Game Traders shop and that he visited. But I just feel, this may sound like I'm quite jealous, but I just feel like his channel is becoming less about the enjoyment of the games, but more just a look what I could buy, look at all this money I've got. And although that may make me sound a bit jealous, I'm really not, but I just don't feel like he clearly knows a bit about games. He's been involved for games all his life and that, but I think what the turning point for me was when he done a video about how he hated Microsoft because he had 12 Xbox 360s or something and they wouldn't let him play the same game on them all. So he said he was going to never deal with Microsoft again, and he had sold all his Xbox games. Then the next video you see, they're all still in the background and he hadn't sell them at all. It was just, I think he has aspirations to be the biggest channel on YouTube, and I mean that's fair enough, but I prefer the smaller guys that appreciate what they've got. Question number 3, your YouTube best pals. Got quite a few, obviously Scott, Segasaturnlad, he's one of them. He's a good friend of mine now. There's Tootie, and there's loads of people that I like to interact with quite often, like Evo Haler. I like to think I'm good buddies with him now. Lloyd Retro Dreaming, even some of the people further afield that I wouldn't necessarily speak to, like Soft Otaku, Vampire Mike, Sega CD Universe. I think I joined Mike's channel, I think he only had about 250 subs. I could be wrong, but well over a year ago now, a year and a half ago maybe. I really liked Mike. I think what I really liked about Mike was the fact that you look at him, he's got the tattoos, you know, he's from New York, and he speaks, kind of looks like he'll be going for a cup of coffee. And you think he's a real tough guy, but he's really not. He's such a gentleman, really top guy. Yeah, so I really enjoyed speaking to Mike over the years. And another guy, two guys in fact, one guy, Alex Blue Tonic 78, he was one of the first people I interacted with on YouTube. Alex is a really good guy, he lives in America now. And the other guy is Minx36 Craig. I like to think I'm quite as close a relationship as you can have with somebody you speak to on the internet. But yeah, I really like Craig. What I really like about him is he's got plenty of money. Obviously he whores his body out at the weekend for a bit of extra cash, so he can afford to buy the finer things in life. But Craig never ever rubs it in your face or anything like that. This is like, he appreciates, like fair enough, he's bought recently he's bought shooting games, a couple of shmups, and they are expensive games, some of them could be up to 100 quid and things like that. But with Craig, you know that he's thought long and hard about buying that game. He's made sacrifices to spend the money on that game. He's maybe not bought other things, not so much other things, but you can really tell that Craig appreciates the games that he buys, and that's the type of people I like to follow on YouTube. Starting to fucking waffle on here, but anyway, so they're my YouTube best pals, but Scotty especially. Question number 4: the most money you've spent on a game, and what game is it? Well, I mentioned this in a few videos ago. The most money I've spent on a game, the game in question, sorry, is Captain Quasar for the 3DO. I think it was £8.57. It was definitely in the £8 mark anyway. I'll need to check back my eBay account. But yeah, that's the most expensive game I've bought for a long time. Many years in fact. I used to spend £40 on games regular, but just not since the 360 launched basically have I spent money on a new game. So yeah, so £8, not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but it is to me. I'm a tight bastard. Question number 5: if you could live in a game world, which would it be? That's a good question, that. One world I certainly wouldn't live in is, I've briefly mentioned this on one of Long Boy's posts videos, is the Mushroom Kingdom. The thing that bothers me about the Mushroom Kingdom is the plumbing. The toilets must fucking stink, must reek, because if I've never ever seen any other plumbing services in the Mushroom Kingdom. So if the entire maintenance of the sewers is down to Mario and his fucking layabout brother Luigi, then the whole place must be in trouble, because I've never seen the bastards do a day's work in their fucking life. They're too busy trying to chase a bit of skirt, trying to get that fucking hole of Princess and Daisy and fucking Yoshi sometimes if they can't get nobody else. Aye, so I wouldn't have, it must reek there. But one place I would quite like to live, I don't know, I must admit I did like walking around Shenmue's world. I spent hours, after finishing the game I would go back and I would just spend hours just following random people around in the street. You'd start like at one end of the town and then somebody would come out of the house or that, so I would just follow them. So I really enjoyed that. I've always wanted to go to China and Japan, so there was somebody on YouTube actually that made a video. They went to the locations of Shenmue, Kowloon City and things like that in Hong Kong. So I hope one day to visit those places. Question 6: would gaming be better if Sony or Microsoft did not enter the market? I would have to say yes and no to this. I think when Sony and Microsoft first entered the market, it was a great thing, because it made, certainly from Sony, it made gaming attractive to other people. It became more financially beneficial to people like publishers and things like that. Games were sold in larger quantities, so it became a more profitable business, which attracted bigger and better people to it. The games were pretty ambitious at the time, as opposed to, no disrespect to the 16-bit era, but it tended to be sort of platforming games were the mainstay. But on the flip side, 15 years later, it's saturated with that sort of setup. Games are that expensive now that There's no creativity in games. You have to always go for the safe bet, and you can't blame people, because if they're spending £100 million on a game, you want it to make a profit. A good example is the folk that it's a Blizzard Creations that made Project Gotham Racing. They had 4 successful racing games, one on the Dreamcast. They had one bad game in split second or something. No, it was a bad game, but it didn't sell quite as well, and bankrupt. Because money, it's so expensive to invest in games now. So I'm glad they entered, but in the grand scheme of things, I think they've definitely made it worse in the long scale. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Question number 7. Worst console out of the Atari Jaguar, Panasonic 3DO, Philips CDI, Nintendo Virtual Boy, Amiga CD32, iPhone, TigerGame.com or the Amstrad. Well, I'm not going to say the Jaguar or the 3DO because I love the consoles. I also love the Virtual Boy. The Amiga CD32, I love the 1200, and that's basically just a 1200. But I could see where they were going with that. It's a flop, but you're still playing great Amiga games. The TigerGame.com, I had one as a child. Again, I feel I could respect what they were trying to go for there. It was touchscreen, pretty advanced for its time, but like most things that are advanced at its time, the first batch are always shite. When you look back at it, they are pretty dreadful. So I could kind of respect that. So I'm going to have to go for the iPhone, because I think that is shit, like Scott says. It just doesn't work for playing games. Fair enough, flicking things across the screen at fucking blocks and things like that. But to play an actual proper game that requires precision and that, it just doesn't work. And the Philips CDI, I feel, wasn't really aimed as a games machine. It was an interactive multimedia thing. So games was sort of like a second thought. I think they realised that there could be money to be made in games, so we better pump some out. So the Philips CDI is pretty poor as well, but it does have one really great game in Burn Cycle. Well worth owning the system for that. Question number 8. Since doing YouTube, what is the most important lesson YouTubers or YouTube has taught you? Never put aftershave on your balls after you've shaved them. What else has it taught me? It's okay to watch videos with male nudity in it. Does it make you homosexual? No, seriously. I think, like a lot of people have said, I think it shows you don't judge people by what you perceive immediately. Don't judge a book by its cover. And again, I go back to what Vampire Mike is. I mean, I say to him, you see him covered in tattoos and that, you think he's going to be a wrong-in. Great guy. And also I think, like, I interact with a lot of people through a wide spectrum of ages. Like, there's people on here that are like 16 that I talk to, and there's people in their 40s and 50s. So it just shows you that age isn't really a factor in things. You can still have good friendships. And also it's good to have other people to talk about, like your hobbies and interests and things like that. I think that's what YouTube is really all about. When you get past all the shit about folk making videos on catching ice cream cones and shit like that, it's about people, like-minded people talking about like-minded things. And yeah, so question number 9. How does your family view your retro hobby? Well, my missus, she's alright about it. I collected retro I've been with her 10 years. I've collected retro, well, I've been into video games ever since I've met her. So she's always understood that I had a passion for it. She can't understand why I like to play like Master System games. She doesn't understand that. She doesn't play games at all, apart from Candy Crush and things like that. So she does get a bit annoyed when she can't open the front door for things coming through the letterbox. And when she goes into my wee boy's room, she looks at it all and she's like, oh, for fuck's sake. Whereas I'll go upstairs to her cupboard and I'll have 2 coat hangers with a good suit on and a pair of trousers, and she has 16 wardrobes full of fucking everything under the sun. So, aye, she just leaves me be, basically. She just leaves me get on with it. She's happy that I've got something to do. Whereas if I was into golf or that, I could go out and I could be dipping my wick into any old bitty totty that walks about the street, and she would be none the wiser. And I came home and she said, "Oh, how was your golf game?" I said, "Aye, I sunk a few balls in a few holes and things like that." Whereas at least if I'm playing games, she knows where I am. I'm right next door, and she can still nag me through the wall. And my parents and that, they don't really care. They know I don't spend much money on it. So, yeah, they don't really. Yeah, they're past caring, to be honest. It's not their problem any longer. I moved out years ago, so they didn't give a fuck. So, question number 10. If you were a zombie, who would you eat first? Oh, that's a good question. Let me think now. There's a number of, obviously I like Scott's answer, how he picked Jennifer Lawrence. And I wouldn't mind doing that myself. But I think I would have to be tempted to go for somebody that I find more irritating first and just fucking rip into their face. So anybody that is on TV for being famous for having no ability whatsoever. I'm talking folk like in that Geordie Shore, people like Katie Price and folk like that, and just generally tits. I would just line them all up and just chew into all of them. And probably David Cameron as well, because that man is a fucking bell end. Christ, I can't believe he's in charge of the country. Not for much longer, when we become independent. Right guys, that's my top 10, not my top 10 questions, my 10 questions for the Segasaturnlad. If you haven't already seen his video and you've watched this, please go check him out. I'll leave a link in my box. Great guy, go check him out. And it's a shame because he's stuck in the house and sometimes his wife doesn't allow him to leave for the heating on, so he has to put his big jumpers and his hats and that on. So maybe go give him a wee sub to cheer him up, try and keep him cosy inside. Right guys, thanks for watching, take it easy, see you next time.